You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Monday, December 16th. I'm in a much better mood today than I was Thursday, but I want to check in on my co-host here, Weston. I was kind of glad that, you had a couple days to process the 49ers' latest loss. How are you feeling today on a Monday?
I'm glad I had a couple days as well, but apparently I picked up a new hobby to keep myself distracted, and it started with Friday morning. I decided I was going to go pick up a full pickup truck full of wood. Here we are Monday evening, and I'm basically through the entire pickup truck of wood. I've just been running my fireplace nonstop, and I joke with my wife that I'm saging the house of what is the 49ers 2024 football season. So I think I'm coping. I don't know if I'm coping well, but I'm trying my best.
Coping. That's what we're all doing at this point in time. I think we got to start this show off talking about the biggest thing that has kind of distracted us, I would say, from the 49ers loss and just how that went down. Devondre Campbell obviously quitting on the team Thursday, refused to go into the game, as I think we've all heard by now. And I want to be very clear because I did name this video on YouTube. I named it 49ers Get Petty, and they suspend Devondre Campbell. The reason I say the 49ers are getting petty is because they could have very well cut him. Yep. And I think the assumption for all of us was that he was going to get cut until we saw the reports that he was going to be suspended. Now, I'll explain why the suspension, I think, is the right move after all. But yes, the petty part is suspending over cutting. But I'm not saying that they weren't in every right to do this. We got the quote from John Lynch. Actually, it was a very, very short statement in which he said, "We have suspended Devondre Campbell Sr. for 3 games due to conduct detrimental to the team. We will have no further comment on the matter." End quote. And I believe it was because obviously this game happened Thursday. There was a lot of reports between Thursday and Sunday even. And Jay Glazer, gave the report in the Sunday pregame show saying that it was John Lynch who had the conversation with Devondre Campbell, I think in the third or fourth quarter, whenever it was, basically told him to leave. If you're not going to play, leave. And it was apparently a heated exchange. I guess John Lynch has the nickname out there, Red 47. So don't make John Lynch angry, I think, is the lesson that we've learned here. But Weston, what was your thought process on all this, just seeing this unfold, especially in a loss, right? Of all times, I guess that would be the time to do something like this. But the 49ers were still very much in the game when this took place. So what were just your thoughts on Devondre Campbell, quitting on the team?
At first, I honestly didn't know this really even happened until super late in the game, post game, just caught up in everything that's going. And then you start wondering why, okay, Greenlaw's not out there, but why is Campbell not? You know what I mean? There's a lot of confusion just around the linebacker spot. But I'm applauding the San Francisco 49ers and John Lynch for this. Absolutely. I stand up and take a bow. Call it petty, call it whatever you want. I would argue that the players' actions were petty. I don't often agree with this individual. I do find them to be very passionate and lively, and I gravitate towards this style. But Emmanuel Acho, right, we talked about and calling him a traitor. This is the ultimate sin when it comes to the ultimate team sport is you quit on your team. You just quit, and you did it calculated. You're going to talk in a moment about some locker room chatter pregame, etc., and I won't spoil that, but this feels like this was in the making before the start of the game when something could have been done, and that player could have just easily removed himself from the equation and said, you know what, I'm going to quit on my team, but I'm going to do it now. Where you can get another player out there, another home game. So all the people are here, right? It's not like you're in another city and the practice, the P squad didn't travel out, whatever it is. I applaud what they did, and I love the fact that they went after the pocketbook, because I feel like, or the purse or the wallet, whatever term you want to use, because I just feel like he did what he did knowing he was going to do it if the opportunity ever presented itself, which it clearly did. We'll talk about how he was wrong to feel the way or feel slated in a moment, I'm sure. But he hit the team when it was hurt. It was like literally kicking the team while it's down. Their season's been over. You can say the season was on the line, and yes, this game and every game thereafter, had they won, the season would be on the line. But he quit in an integral moment when it was going to hurt the most, and it felt like salt on an open wound, kicking a player while they're down, etc. Do the same to him. You earned that. And honestly, I take it a step further, and I'd be tossing fines on the way out. I'm not only pulling money that we might have promised you, I'm taking money back that we gave you, even if it goes to the league. Like, this is Pete Rose is not in the Hall of Fame because he committed the ultimate sin in baseball. He gambled on his team and on the sport. This is the equivalent of that. Not that Devondre Campbell is a Hall of Fame caliber player, but this tarnishes everything he's ever accomplished in the NFL to the greater public. Maybe not to him. He's had some success. He's earned some money. But to the greater public, like, this is what Devondre Campbell will always be. He will be a player who quit on his teammates.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, right, like the discussion of why the 49ers went with the suspension over cutting is because it hits him where it hurts, in the pockets. And not only that, it makes it so he can't sign with another team, because you cut him. Not only do you have to pay dead cap fees or however much that was going to be, but he could still sign with another team. I mean, maybe the Raiders, I don't know. There's some bad teams out there who would probably pick him up. And, the 49ers say, F that. And you're not getting any of that. And we're taking our money back. So what the 49ers could recoup, or what Devondre Campbell could lose will lose with this suspension, is up to $807. Oh my God, math is hard. $873,332. 3 games of his base salary, 3 games of per game bonus, up to $111,000 of his signing bonus play time. So that's the one they can ask him to return, basically, to get back. And I do think they will pursue that, because there's no reason for you to elect to do a suspension over cutting if you're not trying to get some of that money back.
Every penny. I don't care if it's $5. Go spend the money it's going to cost you to go get it, to prove your point, right? Like, that's what I've been doing.
And I think on top of this, they could probably tack on some fees while they're at it, right? I mean, the reports are nameplate no longer in the locker room. Obviously, he's not at practice today. Like, he wasn't in the building. He's not going to be in the building. So this is as close to being cut, while the 49ers getting as much money as they can back from a player who, didn't care to play for this money, clearly. And I think, the biggest thing is it almost felt premeditated, like Nick Bosa talked about today, speaking to media in the locker room. He talked about he heard some complaining from Devondre Campbell in the locker room before the game. So he said he kind of saw the foreshadowing, but didn't expect that it would result into all that. He also said he didn't want to, he thought about saying something, but didn't want to kind of create a distraction before the game. I'm okay with that. I don't think anyone would have imagined he would go to the lengths of quitting. And if you thought that this would be something that you might do, why even suit up? Yeah. I think that's the worst part about it. Like, it's one thing if before the game you're like, coach, I'm just not feeling it. Still bad, right? But like, to dress up, you're literally taking the spot of someone who would have loved that opportunity. Like any of these younger players, I don't know. It's just, it rubs me the wrong way. And yeah, we can go in circles about just how shitty this is a thing to do for your team. But yeah, I'm just glad he's gone. He's gone, and the 49ers are going to get some money back. So I'm glad he's not going to be able to touch any of that either.
You know what was actually the brightest spot to come out of this entire stuff was how you heard the 49er players speak about, like, I didn't even know this was a thing that people did, right? You know what I mean? And like, Mooney Ward, like, oh, he's gonna be cut. You know what I mean? Like, they know what's gonna happen. They understand. But like, it felt like a moment where the in a very bumpy season where the locker room was cohesive and together and felt like they all felt the same way. And, listen to George Kittle speak. Like, I've never been around anybody that's done that. I hope to never be around. Didn't know this is a thing. Like, even Bosa sitting here saying, I definitely didn't think it was going to result in that. This is unfathomable. You can go back and count the times where you've seen it happen, like in a game scenario, because it doesn't happen. It's not the norm. It's what makes it when we talk about teams tanking and doing that stuff, which makes that so difficult, because these individuals tend to be so prideful and would never do that. And while we might poo-poo like locker room bonding and stuff like that, when things like feel like they're in turmoil or going south, they truly do play for one another. Like, these guys know each other. They know each other's families. They spend every day with one another, hours upon hours, in sweat, blood, sweat, tears. Like, they all know each other, friendly or not, you know what I mean? But this is something that they don't expect from their own worst enemy in the locker room, is to have a guy walk off the field in the middle of the game.
It's this specific team, this specific locker room in general, that, like, I think it makes me so much more angry for them too, because you think about all the things that some of these players have had to go through off the field that we know of, and I'm sure there's things we don't know of, right? But those guys have suited up and they've played games since then, since they're each individual tragedies, right? A lot of those guys. And for Devondre Campbell to just say, I don't care and I'm not going in, like, that's so freaking selfish. And it's crazy too, because it's Dre Greenlaw.
Yeah,
like,
did he get benched for me? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, did you really think you were better than Dre Greenlaw, like, at any point in this season?
You should have known the moment they opened his window. It was a ticking bomb, right? Like,
I mean, to be honest, you should have known when you signed this deal. Yeah. Like, you knew what it was. Yep. You knew what it was. So, like, that's the crazy part. And, it really upsets me, because for a lot of reasons, but I think also because Dre Greenlaw had a hell of a game. And we're barely even talking about that. Instead, we're talking about, this bum who couldn't even care to go into this game. Like, it's crazy to me. And Dre Greenlaw had to exit this game, as did, a couple of other guys at the linebacker position. And that's why they needed him. Didn't care, didn't go in. So I want to get this over with. I'm glad the 49ers just, like, made the decision to suspend him. Nameplate gone. You're gone. I don't want to talk about him again.
We're can done. Agree right now.
We're done.
I'll be done talking with him if you're done talking about him.
We're done with Devondre Campbell, because he's not part of this freaking team anymore. So let's just end it with that and talk about things that, like, actually do matter with this team. I mean, I'm also, like, this has also distracted from the fact, good or bad, whether, like, maybe you wanted a distraction, right? But it's like, the 49ers, like, the offense played terribly. So, like, we're not talking about that enough either, because of this. This is kind of, like, overshadowed everything. But Weston, let's get into this game now.
Isn't that, Steph, a microcosm of the entire year? Like, it's not just one thing. It's not just like, oh, the season was over and the offense played bad. No, it's like, let's just dump that right on top of it, And then once you peel back that onion, again, because we're not mentioning said player, now let's dive into the dumpster fire that was the 2024 season.
Exactly, David, in the comments. Who are we talking about? Exactly. Nobody. Did you hear something? Oh, nothing. It was just the wind. All right. So are you sipping some wine? What you got over there?
Yeah.
You needed some wine to get through this episode. I get it.
I'm sorry.
I get it. That's where we're at. The 49ers are driving you to alcohol. Man, that's where we're at.
I mean,
He went from
felt like the
water
safer
to
choice versus everything else.
yeah. Well, yeah, Weston, let's get to this game, right? For one, like I said, this was a hell of a performance, I thought, from the defense to hold this LA team to just 12 points. A team that put up 40 plus points on the Bills just the week prior, like 4 days prior, actually. And I thought this stat was cool. Before Thursday, the Rams had never gone 4 offensive drives without a first down under McVay. So 49ers defense did that. It's something to feel good about. The problem is 49ers offense was also just as bad through the first 8 drives. Both teams were 0-8 on third down. It was a punt fest. It was a pretty boring game. Like I said on like the post game live, I feel so bad for anyone who had to watch this game who's not a fan of the 49ers and the Rams. I'm a fan of the Niners and I felt bad I had to watch the game, like it was that boring and that uneventful aside from, Dre Greenlaw and what we came to find out about, what happened after. But yeah, this was just a weird game. I think after the Bears game, we were like wondering how much of that was going to stick, right? And how much of that would be transferable to the following week and what are they improving on that they can build on, right? And I think we were hoping and honestly thinking that naively they would latch on to a lot of that, like especially the offense, right? Like I was really looking forward to this offense looking cohesive again. And again, like we just didn't see any of that.
Again, a microcosm of the season. The left hand's not talking to the right hand. Defense shows up in a big way against the team. I mean, you held the Rams to 3 points through 3 quarters, right? They scored 9 in the fourth quarter, but you held them essentially to 3 points through 3 quarters. A team that just went and put up 44 points against the Buffalo Bills, no slouch of an opponent whatsoever, to win a football game. And then 4 days later, you hold them to 12 total points. I thought, again, the game was there for the taking throughout the entire game. It was there. It was to be had. But what do we know about this version of the San Francisco 49ers? They let a team hang around, they're going to get beat. It's that simple. You just knew, I'd say like very early into the third quarter, I'm like, this has got L written all over it because they just couldn't get the step ahead and constant, self-inflicted wounds, drop passes, etc. We can go into the specifics, but it just had that feel really early on in the third, even in the third quarter, even though they took the lead. It was just like, it's not enough. Like the field goals aren't going to get it done. The Rams are going to go down and score a touchdown at some point. There's just too much from this offense, both on the ground and through the air. I mean, Puka Nacua is a savage. Dude is a full-grown man, you know what I mean? Like with a boy's mentality, he's unbelievable. And the more you watch him, the more impressed you are because it's almost like the Jawan Jennings effect, except magnified. Like he doesn't look super gifted. He doesn't he doesn't look super. He just is. Like he just is. It's like a phenomenon. But just another frustrating loss. Forget about like what it meant for the season's expectations and hopes, etc. Just rinse and repeat this year. A game there for the taking, and just find a way to not take it. And it's a shame because I thought defense's best performance. We'll get into players, but a lot to rave about on the defensive side of the ball. And I'm not going to knock them for giving up 9 points in the fourth quarter. They were on the field a lot because the offense wasn't doing anything. This is the offense has to hold up their end of the bargain. The defense gave them every opportunity. I mean, Jesus, Matthew Stafford was gifting, the one knock I'll have on the defense is like, Matthew Stafford came to the game saying, it's the holidays. I got gifts for everyone. And everybody was feeling selfless. And we're like, no, you take it. No, you take it. Thanks, guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought defensively great game, offensively equally as poor. I don't even have a better word. It was just poor. It was just real bad.
Definitely one of the more forgettable performances I can think of for this offense. And I have a stat about the offense that is pretty sad as well.
It's not good. Let's hear
191 total yards is the lowest ever by a Kyle Shanahan coached 49ers team in the regular season, 191 total yards. I just don't understand how you go from looking as good as you did the week prior. And I get it. It was the Bears. Like, I understand that. But, like, we didn't even see a small glimpse of that against the Rams. That was the part that I think I was so, like, what were the things that we liked against the Bears so much? It was like Kyle Shanahan pressed the easy button for Brock, right? Like, screens. Yeah, you were about to say it, like screens, play action, everything was clicking. It was all working and everything just looked easy. Nothing looked easy against the Rams. It was just crazy.
I mean, let's give the Rams some credit here, right? Like, this is a division game, right? You see this team multiple times a year. They all get up for this because it's buddy versus buddy as the head coaches, and these guys have been playing against. So I did actually expect a lower scoring game, not what the 49ers did offensively the week before, and certainly not what the Rams did. I just didn't think it would be this poor from the 49ers perspective. I don't think the Rams played well offensively. I'll give the 49ers defense a lot of credit for that, and I'll give the Rams defense the credit that they deserve for how bad the 49ers offense played, but self-inflicted wounds and just inopportune times. Drop passes are a big one, and it's not just one player that everybody's thinking of. There were drop passes by people that we've been singing praises for all year long. It just was that game. It was just, I don't know, Steph, tell me this doesn't just literally define the entire season. This is what we talk about every Monday, like down to a T.
I feel like we talk about the same game over and over again with this team.
Oh my God.
It really does feel
like Groundhog's Day. We're in Groundhog's Day. That's what we're in.
And technically, she asks, Steph, think it had to do with the weather. Does Brock continue to have an issue with that? And/or did Kyle not press the easy button with play action? Did Rams D force the issue with that? Probably a mix of everything, right? Like, I think Weston is right. Like, we do have to give some credit to the Rams. But at the same time, like, I just don't have any excuses as to why this offense couldn't get anything going. Like, there really is none. And we didn't even talk, Weston, about the fact that, Debo was getting the ball quite a bit and not doing anything with it. Were those wasted touches? I don't know. But it certainly didn't end up helping the 49ers in this game. And just they weren't able to get into any rhythm. The run game, I think, obviously, Isaac Guerrero maybe not at 100% in this one. He didn't look as efficient as he had in previous opportunities, previous games. So I think all of that plays into it as well. The weather thing is definitely, that's a narrative that I think is very much true because there's a large enough sample size now of Brock not having good games in poor weather. So I have no choice but to think that narrative has legs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it has legs. It's a real thing. And I don't know if tonight is the night, Steph. I'm sure you and I will spend ample time talking about the conundrum that is Brock Purdy and what their team's supposed to do. But to the question here is, the weather hinders him, and we've seen it. We've seen it in every weather game. I'm trying to recollect and don't know if he's played a good one in the weather yet. So clearly it's an issue, and you're a team that don't play in the dome, that plays in the Bay, that tends to be soggy and wet at least a couple times a year. Like, that's got to get, people say hand size and blah, blah, blah. I think it's a mental thing. I think it's a mental block. It's something that whomever Brock Purdy plays the next 10 years for in the NFL has got to figure it out.
Yep. I do agree with that. Super chat from 49ers Throwback here says, I'm not calling our defense playing good if they can't capitalize on takeaways. Example, Green Bay and Chiefs did it yesterday. They still did good.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been great if they had gotten those takeaways that hit them in the hands. Yes, but it was still a really good game from them. So I'm not going to take that away from them. But I get it. Like, that's really the only complaint I think we can have on the defense. Other than that, I thought they were They were awesome. And they still, even without the takeaways, they still gave the 49ers offense every opportunity, because a lot of those drives that they didn't get those takeaways on ended up being punts. So the 49ers got the ball back one way or another. Offense didn't do anything with that. So I have no choice but to call the 49ers offense just straight up bad after that.
The defense did nothing to lose this game. Did everything to win the game. I will not fault. You cannot fault the They gave up 12 points in a game in the NFL. That is a good enough to win stat really right then and there. Period. Point blank. There's not a conversation to be had beyond that. I'm not one who often points. I would say the one thing the 49ers blame has been equally dispersed throughout the season, which is just poor showing. This one, I will come out and say it. The offense did not hold up their end of the bargain, period. I won't, not down to a player. All 14 or 15 players throughout the course of a game that trot out into that huddle at some point did not hold up their end of the bargain.
Yep. I agree. Well, Weston, I mean, I know it's always tough in a loss, right? But I think I still think there were one or two. Exactly. There were one or two performances in that game that I think were deserving of 49K Player of the Week nomination. You could probably guess what side of the ball those nominations are coming from, just based on what we've said so far. So I mean, I'm going to start this one.
Please do.
This one's, I mean, it's just so obvious, right? Like, Dre Greenlaw. It has to be Dre Greenlaw coming into this game. I think we knew that he was going to give his 100%. At the same time, I don't think his 100% coming off of an Achilles tear 10 months later would look this freaking good. Like, dude looked like he hasn't missed a beat. Like, I would have never been able to tell that he tore his Achilles 10 months prior. Like, it was crazy. He looked like his old self. He was flying around the field. The energy he brought was palpable. 7 total tackles in this game. It felt like more. That's how much PFF gave him. He also said he had 2 assists, 4 stops. So think about that. Like, just 4 times that he made it so the opposing offense had like a negative play, basically. So just, and not negative yardage wise, just like, a bad play. Just 12 yards allowed in his coverage. I mean, he was all over the place. And that's the Dre that we know and love. It was just so nice to have him back again. I do think it's a shame that other things are like overshadowing the performance that he had, because it was definitely, I think, one to remember from Dre, and one that I hope we get to see more of. I'll just, slip in there that he wasn't seen at the bonus practice today. So not sure if he's dealing with something. I know he had to exit the game early. I don't feel like that was like a snap count related thing, because based on how he was playing, like, I would have been fine giving him 100% of the snaps. So, he just didn't look right when he exited the game. He was, using the muscle gun and, getting looked at. So hopefully he's okay. But I just think it was a great performance from Dre, and I want to make sure that, we acknowledge that here.
Yeah, if you didn't, I was. This is my number one. It's a short list, but it was my number one regardless. I thought I had read or heard that he was concerned, like he felt just like a little, and I think it was his words, funny in his knee. And he just kind of wanted to shut it down and not force it. And Steph, how much I was on the fence about even bringing Dre back into a game with the season at a loss for all intents and purposes. In my eyes, I didn't want to risk further aggravation, because 10 months is a short window with the Achilles, etc. But I know we were all hyped and knew what just even a spiritual uplift it would be to the defense. And God, it was, right? Like, all of a sudden, things just look better, look cleaner. I was more concerned, especially coming off an Achilles, is like trusting yourself reactionary. Like, I always try to say this stuff. When some people will go their professional sports career without getting injured, just to have that luck, right? Like Patrick Mahomes has that luck. He gets banged up. He gets a high ankle sprain. Everybody else in the world that's like 6 weeks. For him, he might miss a game, you know what I mean? And be back meaningful time. Like, he's blessed. He's fortunate in that regard. And he would tell you as such. But once the injuries happen, the body starts breaking, right? And players know this, and I don't think they trust themselves right out of the gate. That's why the recoveries are longer. And we'll talk a lot about this with BA going into next season, coming off what he did. But he trusts himself. He played like confidently. He played with great reactionary speed, which is what the defense is. Usually when you're coming back from something like that, you're like, I want to make sure my feet are underneath me perfectly before I play and go. You're worried about the injury. He wasn't worried about the injury. He was flying around. Obviously, he's just a straight up hype machine. But I will say the best thing about Dre's game was not just his individual play. Jesus, he was Michael Jordan. He elevated everybody else around him. It's funny how easier your job becomes when the guy next to you really does their job at a high level as well. One less thing to focus on. You mentioned all the statistics, everything he did. It was phenomenal. What a game. And I will say this. I have seen everything that I need to see from Dre Greenlaw in 2024. Shut it the F down. Prioritize this man. He should be a San Francisco 49er. Go forward. The man can still play ball. Now let him go get his full rest, full recovery. I don't know. Did he look a little heavy? I thought he looked a little heavy.
I mean, probably like when you have to.
That's not a knock. It just was like,
you
know what I mean? Like,
so much.
Let's let him get back into that ball shape.
Yeah, yeah. I mean? I think that is important. I also saw someone post an image of his legs, like his calves, and one side obviously a lot bigger than the other. Yeah. The smaller side, obviously, the side that he's been rehabbing this whole time. So yes, to your point, like it takes some time to get back up to that. It's actually makes it even more incredible that he was able to do that with one leg, very, very noticeably smaller than the other. Right. But yeah, I mean, I think he's awesome. And I'm glad you brought that up about you've seen everything that you needed to see from Dre to feel good in giving him an extension. Because I kind of was curious, not to derail us from the nominees here, but again, we don't have that many.
Yeah, there's not much more beyond that.
Let's go ahead and just take a quick exit before we get back on the highway here. Yep. Yeah, like I think I would give Dre an extension. Like I saw people saying like give him an extension now, like at halftime, right?
Why not?
And that's how dominant he looked. Now, I think the fears that we have would be re-aggravation, something like that. But I think those fears would only be amplified if he plays the rest of these games, right? So like, do you think one half of football or 1/3 of a game, 2/3 of a game is enough for the 49ers to be like, yeah, we've seen enough. We want to extend Dre.
Yes. I think they actually did a disservice to themselves by playing him in this game. If they felt confident about what they saw in practice, how he was moving around, you keep him off the field because there's no tape on you in 2024. And you have lost a year of your life not playing football. You are another year older. And there are people for every team that sit with spreadsheets and say, this guy's 28, this injury, this position. Like these people exist at organizations. It's it's a little team of minions under Parag that you don't know about that just punch Excel spreadsheets all day long. And giving the evaluation from a financial standpoint. I think putting the play on tape actually hurt the 49ers. But yes, I've seen what I've needed to see to say that I mean, Steph, I was saying it on your show before I even saw him play this year, was he's a priority. And I think I'm vindicated in the sense of what you saw in a limited window on Thursday night, that it should be a freaking priority for this defense. It's just different when he is on the field. He plays, what have we said the 49ers have lacked all year? Physicality, right? Like on the offensive line, the defensive line, who's more physical than this dude? Like who? And don't give me, he's sub 30 years old. You know what I mean? Like at a linebackers play a lot longer than a lot of other positions do. Remember that too. The good ones, the instinctual ones, the guys who understand football, guys play with heart. That's him. I'm not a general manager. I am not John Lynch, but if I was, he's a priority.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely would want to see him back, especially based on what I saw. I have to imagine, the 49ers been seeing him in practice. They probably weren't surprised by what they saw. A few fans probably weren't surprised by what they saw. So yeah, let's just get it done. And on a side note, to segue even further, like I think Hufanga, since he's come back from his, wrist injury, he's looked pretty good himself as well. And when you have Jair Brown, who's been struggling this season, that may make an interesting decision this offseason too. So we'll see what the 49ers do this offseason with both of those players. But obviously, we know one is definitely a priority. That would be Greenlaw. So we'll see.
Can we stay on Hufanga? Because if you were going to ask me my nomination, I would put up Talanoa Hufanga.
Are you nominating him?
I am nominating him.
Okay, let's go.
I thought, to your point, I think he's looked like a different player since he's come back. I didn't think he was that player in the limited we saw him last year. He definitely wasn't that player in the limited time we saw him when he came back earlier this year. I think he's playing he's definitely playing more mistake free. I think he's playing faster, much more instinctual, and surprise, surprise, he's finding himself in the right spot to do the things that Talanoa Hufanga's done. Years past, maybe not a club on his hand, maybe we see him pick that off, right? Because we have seen that before, and we've seen him make house calls, but finding himself in the right position to make tackles, less poor angle pursuits, right? Earlier in the year, he just looked lost on the football field. But what you're going to get sold a lot this offseason about how this roster is going to look entirely different. And they got to find the free agent impact players and do well in the draft. And all of that is accurate. They're going to have to do well in the draft again. They're going to have to find one or two free agent, but isn't it the same to say, oh, look at the added bonus to this football team if you bring back the likes of Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw, people who didn't see the field this year? Isn't it fair to say that that's potentially an upgrade for what's going on next season as part of your free agent strategy, right? And people who are familiar with the house, we all know, big-time free agents very seldomly work out. That's why what's going on with the running backs across the NFL this year is wild with the success that they're having, because that never happens, right? Like, just think of the demise of Le'Veon Bell. Went from the best to non-existent in a season and a half. Like, it happens when you leave your team. I think there's a lot to be said about prioritizing those two or giving them real serious consideration for coming back. Because I think those are, you don't look at them like you're retaining your talent, look like you're bringing back new talent because you really didn't even get to experience that talent in the season before.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, Hufanga, I do agree, has looked great and someone I wouldn't mind bringing back, if obviously I think it matters what the deal looks like. Same goes with every player who's a free agent that we want to bring it back. I mean, we know checks are coming due for the 49ers this offseason. So
sure.
It has to make sense both from the wallet standpoint for this team and obviously on the field. I think on the field, it's a no-brainer, right? But we know there's more to it than just that. So we'll see what happens with both of those players. It's going to be an interesting discussion as we head into the offseason and into these remaining games, right? Like we said, will Greenlaw even play any of these remaining games, or do they kind of just shut him down? We've seen enough. Hufanga, what is he going to look like with the remaining games? It looks like his stock is going up. So I'll just say that. And I'm glad you nominated Hufanga. I wasn't going to nominate him, but I do have another defensive player to nominate. And, funny enough, I do think that this player benefited from the return of Dre Greenlaw as well. I think everyone did, right?
Yep.
But no one more than Fred Warner.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. That's crazy because Fred Warner on his own is such a dominant player. He brings energy, right? But I don't think seeing Greenlaw return, it was just different, right? I think those two guys need to be together. They need to be together at this point. They're bonded,
Yeah,
so
totally.
and And we've seen Fred Warner not take a step back, but like with him, having a broken ankle, I think we're expecting that, he wasn't as dominant as he was in the first 4 games of the season, right? But he looked like himself in this game. And I do think that extra like oomph came from Greenlaw being there. And just the energy that he provided, it's like, all right, cool. Like, I'm ready to go. I got my boy back. Like, we're unstoppable. 11 total tackles for Fred Warner in this game. A pass defended, 6 stops, just 23 yards allowed in his coverage. I mean, it was just, he looked like himself again, and that was great to see. And I hope if Greenlaw misses some time, if Greenlaw were to miss some time, I do hope we still continue to see this side of Warner for like the remaining games. But if we don't, then my theory is correct that like a part of him leaves when Greenlaw is not on the field.
Yeah. Well, all right. I got a couple things here to say. So these are my exact 3 players as well. So I'm glad we're on the same page here. We watched the same game clearly,
yes.
Steph. It's what did we talk? All right. What did we talk about that Fred was doing all year long, especially the last like 7 or 8 games?
Trying to do other people's jobs.
Yeah. And when you have the confidence that firsthand the guy next to you knows his job, one less thing to worry about. Forget the hype, forget the love, forget everything that comes with it that's all positive of Dre Greenlaw returning. It's on the field, in the game, reactionary, making plays. There's just a lot of trust there. Think of the 49ers linebackers of past as your own example. Take Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman. As individuals, still superstars.
Good, yeah.
But they were even better when they were on the field together. Statistically speaking, they put up better numbers when they were on the field together. And it's simple math. If you're an offensive coordinator and you're game planning against the 2024 version of the San Francisco 49ers and Nick Bosa is not playing, what are you doing? I need to know where the mic is at all times. I need to know where 54 is. And every play call is going to be at 50. Is it going to be about scheming against 54? Well, that becomes a little bit harder when it's 54 and 57. Oh, and 97 something. You know what I mean? Like, you get these guys back. Fred just has to do less. Here's where I differ from you. I don't want to see Fred the rest of the season. If he's playing on that ankle and it's been as bad as they've been talking about, shut it down. I'm going to say this about a lot of people. Shut it down. We know Fred's not going anywhere. We're not losing him, right? Like, shut it down. It's just one of those things where, like, I don't need to see those guys for the rest of the year. Like, I know what Fred is. I know 2024 is not an indictment on his career. It's a wacky year. But I also know that, like, if we have the added advantage of almost getting an additional 8 to 10 weeks of an off season after all the football that these players have played over the last 4 seasons, take advantage of it. Take advantage of it. The body needs to reset a little bit. Let him rest. Let him do his podcast with his wife. Let him have a little fun. Let him show up to practice, walk around, be the bro that we all know Fred is in the locker room. But I don't need to see him play football for the rest of this season. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I would be okay with that too. The thing I worry about
not in the numbers.
Exactly.
Like that,
I mean, the 49ers are at multiple positions, linebacker being one of them, at least after Thursday's game. A lot of injuries. You have one less person in the guy who got suspended, who's no longer pretty much with the team. You have Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, who, like, I think, yeah, he went in there. I don't think he got hurt.
But he was playing. No, he was playing hurt too. That's what everybody was talking about. Why they were so pissed off about this is because they were down Greenlaw, and then DFF is running up and down the field like hobbling because they had literally no other options.
Right. And D Winters exited as well. I think it was a concussion for Winters, so he's in jeopardy of missing this following game against the Dolphins as well, but we'll stay on top of that. And then you got a couple linebackers on practice squad, Jalen Graham and Deshaun White. Like, do you sign someone else, like, just to finish the season so Fred doesn't have to play? Like, I I know that we'd like to see Fred get shut down. I'm not sure if it's in the cards just based on some of the injuries, which is the unfortunate thing.
In the NFL is a funny business, right? Like, listen, at the end of the day, your season's lost. Like, go find a linebacker off the scrap heap for all I care,
Yeah,
right? Like
why
somebody
not?
who's just trying to get their name in front of some cameras and some other scouts, etc. Like, I'd let them line up all day, but it is a game of attrition and a game of numbers. There are rules around IR, right? There are rules around how many people are on your practice squad. So you start, yes, we want to shut all these guys down, but you start doing that to bring in other players. You're getting cute, and you might have to cut players that won't clear the waiver wire, right? Or whatever it might be. Like, it's a lot of mathematical gymnastics that need to take place to be able to shut these players down. So when I say shut down Fred Warner, I say, let him dress. I don't even care. Just do everything in your power to not have him on the football field unless it's an emergency, right? Like, view him as your emergency quarterback, essentially, is the way that I would look at. Try to treat this to the best of ability.
And I am glad you mentioned, like, have him suit up, because, like, there are players who have incentives into their contracts that if they play a certain amount of snaps, so you obviously don't want Fred to lose out on some money just because
he'll be okay if he misses 3 games, I promise. But I understand, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, he deserves it. So, all right, guys, we have a very short list of nominees for 49K Player of the Week. If you haven't voted yet, please go ahead and put your vote in the live chat. We've got Dre Greenlaw. We've got Talanoa Hufanga. We've got Fred Warner. All right. It's a defensive heavy 49K Player of the Week, which is kind of rare, actually, at least this season, Weston. So I'm glad that we're getting the chance to give these guys some love. They definitely deserve it, but put your votes in the comments. Por favor. All right. In the meantime, you have anyone you want to give flowers to or put on notice?
The notice list is too long. We'll be here for another 2 hours just based on this game as well. I'm going to give flowers to George Kittle. Thank you, sir, for just continuing to play the game the right way, playing hard, being a brand ambassador for this team and for this league. I know I sat here and said that the performance was poor across the entire offense, and it was. But if there was a silver lining, it's the game feels really easy when the ball's in his hands, right? When he's doing certain things. But that I mean, I could think of a couple defensive players, but I know we've been focused solely on the defense based on the performance. So I would say, in the light of a poor performance, just always appreciative of what number 85 brings to the game.
Special player, and I do like specifically what he said about Campbell after the game resonated, I think, with everyone, right? Like, again, just someone who plays the game the right way. I want him to be a Niner for life. Like, I think we all do, right? So that's a good one. That's a good one. You can never give too many flowers to George Kittle, I think. And
you want to see a grown man in tears? Wait till that day that man hangs it up or decides to want to be a San Francisco 49ers. I'll be a mess. Pain. I'll be a disaster.
Yeah, he's the best.
He's a special human, I mean, it's not I know we're getting off topic here, but like, there's not much to talk about with the rest of the season, I think. But like, there's a reason why you see him in all the NFL-based commercials. There's a reason why you see him in all these things, is because he's that guy. He's that guy, He's the guy that he portrays for you. You want to know why it's so easy for him? He is so confident in himself and what he does and just how good of a person he is. That's why he can stand up on a podium and take it on the chin all day long, answering questions about how poorly the team and the offense might have played or anything's going on. He can, because he has just built that persona for him. He doesn't quiver. He doesn't cower. He doesn't hide. There's just so much to love about that man. And it's not just, it's not just because if George Kittle could play for any team in the NFL, and I would be a fan of George Kittle, we're blessed because he plays for the team that we happen to root for as well.
Right. I agree with that. I think, like, in an alternate universe, George Kittle drafted by another team, I think in that universe, I would still be a fan of George Kittle just because he's so freaking likable. All right. So Yeah, we got this comment here. Tyshawn Raekwon Samuel Sr.
Somebody
should
went
be
to
the
Google.
easy choice to
Somebody
put
went to
on notice.
Google.
Yeah. You know what? He was on my list of players to put on notice, obviously because of the comments he'd made the week prior. I think when you are then fed the ball as much as you are the following game, similar to the way that George Kittle was the week prior, I expect a performance that pays the team back for, feeding you, right? But what I said on the post-game live was Deebo Samuel did not eat in this game. He left us starved for yardage. I mean, Deebo is the first wide receiver in the league since 2019 to have 5 straight games with 3+ targets and less than 25 yards receiving. That is not good. Yeah. Like, I don't know how much I got to spell it out for you, but that's just not good. And it's just, again, like, I was already a little peeved by the fact that he made those comments after a win. Like we talked about that. And then to follow it up with this type of performance, I mean, is probably the reason he wasn't getting the ball as much, even though he was actually getting the ball just as much as Jennings and Kittle. I actually want to see those guys get the ball more, to be quite honest with you. And yeah, I don't know what's coming next for Deebo, but I do know it needs to be better than what we saw from him on Thursday.
Listen, so I have a funny story, a 2-second funny story. My son gets off the bus today, and he's telling me, he's using names and kids in his class. He's like, Daddy, they're telling me that the 49ers and Deebo Samuel stink. This is a 6-year-old telling me this as soon as he gets off the bus from school. And I'm like, well, first of all, Landon, I love you. Second of all, they do stink. I don't know what else to tell you right now. Like, they're not playing the way that we were expecting this is going to happen. And Steph, I've been I think I've been standing up for Deebo probably more than I even should based on some things. And we know we saw forced action. And I know when you see 5 touches in a game and you're averaging less than 4 yards per touch, that's not good, right? Like, that's not a good thing for what you're being compensated. I just think it's another thing, an example, and his comments don't help him. But this is not all too different from the way I'm not comparing Deebo's play to Fred Warner's play. But it's the same in the same vein of trying to do too much. If Deebo is here beyond this season, it needs to be more. It just needs to be part of the offense, not the offense. Does it make sense? Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like, the Rams are no dummies. Sean McVay's no dummy. He came into this game knowing like they are going to feed Deebo the rock on the first 2 possessions. Guaranteed. Like, they knew, the whole world knew this was coming. I had people be like, I'm starting Deebo in fantasy. I'm like, don't do that. Like, what this year has told you, he's on my team in fantasy, and he hasn't cracked my starting lineup in 7 weeks. You know what I mean?
Right.
Don't do that. Don't let this fool you. You were right. A lot of people were right. He was going to get the grease for being squeaky. He was going to, and we all were cautioning against it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. You saw it early. You didn't see it late. The play that we all want to talk about, that was not a forced play. That's a design play. Yep. That was wide open, right? Like, the problem is he bit off more than he can chew with his comments. That's the reality. But again, I'm not chalking it up. I'm not saying he's not declined, because that's what happens with age in the NFL and the way he plays. What I'm saying is, do I think he is this poor of a football player that we've seen over the last 7 weeks? No, not even a little bit. You know what I mean? I just think this is another thing that it's like punt 2024, figure it out. If you need to make a move from him, okay, I get it. It's all there. It's all justifiable. I totally get it. But if you can find this team is not worse by having Deebo Samuel on the field in the future. You know what I mean? It's hard to argue that they would be worse. I know the evidence is there, but this is just kind of part of an entire scenario, and that's just like a little piece of it. I don't know. I maybe I'm just a fanboy right now, like over Deebo. I don't know, but I'm just telling you, I don't think the team is worse for having him. I just think this this year's been clunky for him, and we can name 10 other players.
I mean, we wouldn't know, right? We wouldn't know if they're worse by having him because we haven't seen Ricky Pearsall or Jacob Cowan get those same opportunities.
Also true.
Well, I'm ready to see those guys get those opportunities. 3 weeks left, 3 games left. Let's get these guys involved. Or else, what are we doing? We're going to go into 2025 without knowing what Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowan is and how they could potentially fit into this offense. I can tell you who doesn't fit into this offense right now. It's Deebo Samuel.
Right now, 100%.
You're not wrong. And that's crazy.
Right now.
That's crazy because he's been the offense for this team as long as
when it's mattered the most, he has been,
absolutely.
In years past.
That's been important and we've all loved him for that. That's the past. Right now is right now, and right now is just it is not good enough. And to go back to George Kittle really quickly, I do appreciate what Kittle said. He told Deebo, like after the game, you kind of just have to take it in the chin and own up to this. And yeah, I think that was good advice because if Deebo just kind of did the whole like stubborn attitude thing after, I don't think it would have gone as well for him after the game. I mean, people are going to be angry because the comments didn't help. So
no,
yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But Weston, do you have a player that you want to not put on notice? We already did that. But vote 49K player of the week. Who you got?
Dre Greenlaw. And Steph, while you're tallying up, I want to know, because tonight's not the night. I know we have games left and we usually recap the game, but I want to know when you and I want to have the Brock Purdy future conversation as a topic. I thought that'd come up a little bit more tonight. I have so much to say on this agenda. I'm so fed up with so many people's opinion on this. Let's get to a forum and let's let it all hang out.
We'll definitely have a show on this, and as you know, Weston will be part of my show lineup in the off season as well, in which this will be kind of the only topic for months. What I will say right now is that there's so many reports to this point that have told us that the 49ers have made the decision already that they are signing Brock Purdy to an extension. So it is no longer a question of will they do it? They have already made the decision. So there's no reason to talk about will they not. I guess you can give your opinion on should they not. But again, they've already made that decision, so it's falling on deaf ears anyway.
Yeah, and I'm not an anomaly here. I don't think it's the wrong decision. I think there's so many factors into it as to okay, for what and how does that look and how does that affect other things. Here's the one thing I want to plant this seed before we even have this conversation. For all the people that want to say Brock is not it, and I'm not saying they're right or I'm not saying they're wrong, because I have my own opinion on this. But for the ones who are adamantly saying this guy is not it and the 49ers should not pay X, what's your plan? So if he's not it and he's not X and you don't sign, what's your plan? That's what everybody leaves out, in my opinion, Steph, is everybody yes or no to sign the guy. It's easier. But that's all. This ain't a game of Madden. You know what I mean? And Patrick Mahomes ain't available in free agency. Josh Allen will never be available in free agency. What's your plan? And then that's where I get so fed up, because it's don't tell me he's not. And don't tell me the 49ers aren't doing what they're supposed to at the quarterback position, because I can give you 35 examples that says, gosh, they've tried really hard to find the franchise quarterback, have not had good luck. What's your plan for a team that drafts in the middle of the pack with a guy that still has what's your plan? That's my challenge to anybody who listens to this. Give me your plan before you to back up your statement about yes or no, they should bring him back. That's it. That's all. Planting the seed, Steph. I'm causing controversy on your channel, so I don't have to hear about it.
And look, it could be a long-term plan, which I think would be my choice, right? I think you sign Brock to an extension. I think you leave options open for yourself. You continue to draft quarterbacks as you always should, because that's just good process. You always draft quarterbacks no matter what, even if you have a franchise guy, because you just never know what's going to happen. And quarterbacks, good quarterbacks especially, don't grow on trees. So you might as well just keep throwing that dart,
Yep.
So that's what I would do. I'd sign him to an extension. I would keep drafting and trying to develop quarterbacks in the background. Maybe one of them sticks. I mean, the 49ers have had, Brock Purdy is kind of a testament to that. Like, I mean, you never know who could be someone who can be good enough to get you wins, all while in the process of trying to find a franchise guy. But as we know, you're more likely to find a franchise guy at the top of the draft. That's just realistically not where the 49ers are picking as of late. So,
and what you devise, Steph, that's a plan, right? Everything else is just like yes or no, 60 million or not. And it's like, that's not that. You've heard me say it on your show before. One thing that I would do if I was a GM every single year is I would draft a quarterback in every single draft. I would draft multiple defensive backs and multiple defensive linemen. Those are the positions that you cannot ignore in any draft. I don't care how plenished you are at the position. Always go find somebody who can compete. Find a body, right? Like this needs to be, but I think there are too many people out there that have a microphone in front of them that act like the NFL is the version of Madden that they're playing on their TV where they can turn trade restrictions off and just go like flip Taylor Mordecai for Josh Allen and nobody would know the difference, like have a plan. Like, I just want to hear the plan. That's all I want, because here's the other truth. You've seen the turmoil that this fan base has gone through in a year where they're 6-8, right? They could still finish above 500 for the season, even not make the playoffs for 6-8.
Yep.
Imagine how this team's going to be when you're like, I'm just going to move on from a quarterback who might even keep us competitive. What do we do? And all of a sudden you're a 3-4 win team. The world will self-combust, So it's like the balance of expectations versus what's reality. Sorry, I totally derailed this stuff. I apologize. But when it's time for that real, I'm ready for that conversation. I'm already in the kitchen brewing.
He's cooking.
He's baby.
Cooking. In the meantime, we're ready to announce our 49K Player of the Week, and that would be Mr. Dre Greenlaw. Incredible in his first game back from an Achilles tear that he can do that, and I have no doubt, right? Like, I know that Fred finished this game. He had the full game statistics, technically better than Greenlaw stats wise, right? Because of that, I have no doubt Greenlaw would, surpass everyone on the team if he finished this game.
Yeah.
And more people would be talking about how great he was. In fact, the top 2 defensive grades on PFF from this game went to Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw from the 49ers side. Warner had 15 total tackles, Greenlaw with 9 in just over one half of football. Neither player had missed a tackle. Like, that's incredible stuff. So yeah, props up to Dre Greenlaw. We're over the hour mark. We love to yap, but you guys love to listen. So we appreciate you guys so much. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Not just mine, Weston's as well. Island 49. Make sure you tap into that. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. But for now, folks, have a good rest of your Monday. Now, peace.